This is Prattski, and in this video I'm going to be covering some of the either missed rules or misunderstood rules in the newly released Heroes of Terrinoth by Fantasy Flight. So let's jump into it. So I've discovered that these are common missed rules either from my own playing, which I've played quite a number of rounds in the last couple of days, and I've also been looking at the forums on Board Game Geek as well to see what people are saying and see what people are asking. So that's kind of where this comes from, and hopefully this will help you get off on the right foot on this game and make sure that you don't make these initial mistakes that some of the rest of us made. So first thing to discuss is on the enemy dice. We've got this icon right here. This is called the threat. And when you roll the enemy dice, it doesn't matter how many you roll, but if you roll one or more, then what you are supposed to do is resolve any of these shown icons on the quest cards or any face-up cards or any nemesis that is face-up in its lair or out in play, either in the shadows or engaged with a hero. Now, it's interesting that the rulebook says that because I've looked at all of the quest cards, and there are no quest cards that have the threat icon on them, nor have I found any other cards that would be face up anywhere that are not Nemesis cards that have that icon. So at this point, I guess we can assume, based on that, that future expansions will have quests that have that icon on it. And they'll probably have other face-up cards that can come into play that will have it as well. But for now, what we have are these Nemesis. And these, there's a number of them that come in the box. I'm trying to find a couple others, for example, here. Here we go. And you can see that they do have this icon down here. So again, just to make sure, if you roll 2 or 3, doesn't mean that you resolve this 2 or 3 times. Just any number of these, you'll resolve any number of these that are out in play, and you read the text and you do what it says. There's nothing that I'm aware of that can cancel that from happening, at least yet. So, as an example here, if we were to roll 1 or more on Axel here, either suffer 2 damage or exhaust 1 activation card. So, they're not a huge deal, but they definitely affect the game. So it's kind of fun. It's an extra thing that you look for that could possibly happen. All right, so that is the threat icon on the enemy dice. Another thing is on the attack dice. So there are a couple different sides that have just the shield or a shield and a success. I, for some reason, ended up coming away from the rulebook thinking that that shield would negate any of these rolled on the enemy dice. These are counterattacks, and I thought every shield would cancel a counterattack. That is not true. Every shield will cancel 1 damage that is done to you by any counterattacking enemies. So, if we rolled the 2 different counterattacks, and those enemies in total did 4 damage to you, and this is what you rolled, then you would be able to cancel 2 of those 4 damage. So they aren't quite as powerful as I originally thought, which is actually going to make the game harder when we are playing that way, which is great, because I originally thought that this game seemed a little too easy. So that's going to help balance it out for sure. So every shield cancels only 1 damage from counterattacks. Traveling. So this was one that we missed that would actually make the game easier, but definitely one that is easy to miss. So in the game, you're usually, there's different quests that will do different things, but you'll have a stack of location cards and you'll have to cycle through those. But once you get enough exploration points on this card, to be able to either equal that number or greater than that number, then once you get to the travel phase, which is the last phase of a round, you'll have the option of traveling to the next location. Now, when you do, there may be the chance that you will have monsters that have spawned out into the shadows. And it doesn't matter if they're face up or face down. Once you travel, any monsters in the shadows can be totally discarded, just as if you killed them, basically. So that can be very helpful, especially if you have a lot of them that have come out. Now, there is one exception that I know of, which is the Wraith. And this card specifically says, if this enemy is in the shadows, when the party travels, it is not discarded. So he would end up staying out. But again, that can be something very useful to get rid of piling up enemies. So yes, make sure you do that for sure. Okay, next thing is rolling the enemy dice. So you roll enemy dice based on the number of monsters that are engaged with you and that are readied. And that last part is the part that I missed. If there are any monsters that are exhausted when you are playing your action, which the rest actions, I believe almost all, say as a first step, you may exhaust one minion engaged with you. That's another point. There's both masters and minions, and nemesis cards. You can only do minions. You can't do masters with that. Then they don't count. They can't counterattack, and they don't add a black dice. So if this was the case, I had 3 engaged with me, but 1 is exhausted, I would only roll 2. If this guy was not exhausted, then I would roll all 3. If I didn't have any engaged with me at all, I would roll none. So once you understand that, it's pretty straightforward. So, but we did miss that. Another one. This isn't necessarily a rule, but just want to point it out because we definitely got screwed up a little bit, is that on these quest cards, there's a lot of information on them, and you'll want to definitely pay attention. Don't quickly go through it all and just kind of leave it at that. The back is just all your setup stuff, so usually it's just kind of a one-time deal to get you set up right. But once you get to the front, you got to really pay attention to all this. The stuff at the top isn't just some flavor text to kind of get you into it. This is stuff that's actually happening throughout the game. And some things in here can literally happen at any time. Like this Siege of Asthill. It says each time a hero each time a hero would suffer 1 or more damage, they may choose to remove progress equal to the number of damage from the active location instead. So that can help you reduce incoming damage by removing these points off of the active location. So that's something that's available at any time. There's another thing on this card that says at the start of the peril phase, discard progress from each location. Discard 1 progress. So that happens every round. So pay attention to this stuff. Otherwise, it's going to throw off the mechanics of the game. You'll also want to make sure and understand what the victory and defeat objectives are. Like what constitutes a victory, what constitutes a defeat. Because they can be different. It's not just defeat the nemesis, explore all of the locations. They can be different. But you will want to know what that actually means to get there. These other ones are fairly straightforward because it's, when you move to a red, blue, or green, you'll just read what's there and do it. And that's the only time that it will happen, is when you are actually going through this phase. But read them carefully and pay attention to what's going on there. Success tokens. You can have, or each hero can have up to 5 success tokens stored. And you use them to add additional successes to your rolls, right? So if I rolled this, that would be 1 success. That's a critical success, and I can re-roll it. All right, so then I would have a total of 2 successes with that roll. But if I played a couple of success tokens before I started my roll, then I would have a total of 4 successes. That can be really helpful. But the rules do state that you can only play a maximum of 2 per activation, and you have to play them before you do your roll. You can't do them after your roll. So there you go. That's that one. So let's talk about when you are resolving a roll on an action. Let's say that I've got these 3 enemies engaged with me. I've got Cinderella. I'm not going to pull out all the rest of the cards, but let's just say it can be any action. So this action that I'm doing allows me to have 2 attack die, and I've got 3 monsters out here. So I'm going to roll them up, and I would kind of do my resolve. But let's say I got enough successes to kill this Dark Priest. Well, I would, the way that the phase goes is you build your dice pool, then you roll the dice, and the first thing you do is resolve your attack dice. So I did 2 damage, let's just say. There we go. And that was enough to get through his resilience and then to do a damage on him. So he's technically dead, but you don't discard him yet. Next part of the phase is to resolve the dice here. And this monster is still eligible to counterattack. So yeah, you can't ignore him yet. Then once you resolve all of these dice, and at that point you do the cleanup phase where you would discard the monster and be done with him. So yes, even though they seem like you have killed them, it's kind of like a skirmish where they can still have done damage to you in the fight. A question I've seen come up a couple times is with the aid action. Every character, every hero has 4 different actions. They've got attack, they've got explore, aid, and rest. And on this aid, it gives you a number of die, and it just says aid. So you'd roll your dice plus enemy dice, however many you've got engaged with you, and you get a number of successes. And the number of successes is how many success tokens that you would be able to aid somebody. And the question has come up, can you aid yourself? So could I do that and then have that be a way of getting a card readied for myself and to get some success tokens? And the answer is no. This is aid, and it's something that can only be done for other heroes. So it's really kind of forcing you to be helpful to your other teammates. So yes, aid cannot be done just on yourself. Another thing worth looking at is the travel phase. And this is the last phase of the round, and there's a number of different things that you have to do in kind of a specific order. So the first thing that you'll need to do is look at the card and determine whether it says at the start of the travel phase or if it says at the end of the travel phase. So if a card says at the start, then at this point you would resolve the text on the card. After you've done that, or if it doesn't have at the start, if it has at the end, then at this point you can choose, it's totally optional, to pass the party leader token to another hero, or if you just want that current party leader to keep it. So, but you have to do it at this point because it's important, especially if you travel to a new location and how the enemies are spawned. But you'll do that. Then it's optional, but you get to choose if you want to travel or not. You can travel if and only if you have enough travel exploration points on the card. You can have either the same amount or more. The game does allow you to have more. And if that is the case, if you've resolved this and there is another location that you can travel to underneath, then you can do that. And so you would take the card away, you discard it, you take the tokens, go back into the pool, and then you would reveal the next location card. And at this point, you would first take care of the enemy spawn, which this would be how many enemies come out that are engaged with the heroes, and this is how many come out that into the shadows. And then this is what's interesting, because this here says at the end of the travel phase. So at this point we would have reached the end, and so we have to resolve this. So in this round we'll have resolved 2 different things. Now if the cards were in a reverse order, and so like this, and this one says at the end of the travel phase, well, we're traveling and getting away from this, so this kind of doesn't matter anymore. And we reveal this, we spawn the monsters, and this one says at the start of the travel phase. Well, we're no longer at the start of the travel phase, we're at the end. So you wouldn't resolve this either. So I believe both of these are just totally don't matter. And some of these can be good, and some of them can be not as good. So it's kind of a toss-up whether or not that's going to end up working out for you or not. But that is how that works. There are definitely some quests that will kind of change the way that this works. You might have multiple face-up locations going on for a particular quest that you have to manage and travel between. But it all kind of depends. You'll see that if you get it and play it yourself. So hopefully that will help potentially fix some of the things that you might have been already missing, or if you haven't yet played, that will kind of drill in the proper understanding of the rules and how it works. If you have any questions at all about the rules, I'm willing to help. Feel free to leave a comment below, and I will definitely see it and get to it. Otherwise, you can also check out Board Game Geek's site, where I'm also somewhat active on the forums there as well. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and this is, as you'll see in an upcoming review, a game that I recommend. It's been a lot of fun, and I think if you like at all kind of what you see from some of the playthroughs that are out there and whatnot, I think you're really going to enjoy this one. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.